I got married, family came first, and this is where I am now. I think the biggest obstacle we have in life today is that we have uh, government, city officials, congressmen. They're all doing what we teach our children not to do. At one time, years ago, they were picking role models. They were advising parents to pick role models for the children to follow. And that's a cop-out for a parent, being a parent of the children's. I always, as a role model, a parent is supposed to, was blessed to be the head of the home, the husband, and it's his responsibility to see that the level of the family is balanced, where it's going according to the will of God and not the will of man. And God instituted the family and the marriage, and it's up to man to coordinate that according to the will of God. And when man have fallen away from what God has commanded him to do, this is why we're falling now. This is why we have fallen. This is why the world is the way it is now, because of their rejection on what God had prescribed for them to go. When you don't teach your children, when you don't correct your children, when your son shows disrespect to his parents, then he's going to show disrespect to his spouse. When a child is being abused at home, then he grows up in an abused environment that he's going to do this. If the father is beating his wife, this is the habit that he's going to form. And it behooves the parents today, where God didn't specify that the family should be ran by a single parent. That's why he created husband and wife, and created woman to be the man's helpmate, to help him, not for the man to abuse or she abuse him. It's a relationship that as Christ had with us, if we allow him to. And this is what we have fallen apart. We have allowed the city and the government to teach us, show us, and control our family. And this is not the way that God intended for it to do. The state have no right to come in and tell you how to raise your children. When your children are being disobedient at home, you can't hit them. You can't spank them. If what they're saying now coincide with the law today, I wouldn't want them to see how we was taken care of back in my days.
Right.
Back then, now they're saying call 911. Man, if I had to call 911 back in those days, you had to call the funeral director to come pick me up. I mean, back in those days, I brought you into the world, I'd take you out. And this was the teaching. So what I did, to stay out of trouble and to maintain a decent mentality, I played sports.
I think most kids did play sports.
And all of us, we was in some sort of activity where it burned up the energy. Now, when I walk from out here by the Friendly House to senior high school every day.
Yeah.
Rain or shine, snow, whatever, every day. We didn't have, it only cost a dime to ride the bus. And if you didn't have a dime, then you pal up with your buddies. After school, I had football. After football, it would be about 6 o'clock when we would finish practicing. I had to walk from Arlen Field all the way out here by Friendly House. Joe Shavinsky and I. Basketball was the same way.
Yeah.
Take a shower after the game, I had to walk home. A lot of days it was bad weather. You're sitting in school looking at the weather, and you think, man, I got to walk home.
And when you get home?
Parents didn't have but one car or no car.
Yeah.
And then when I got home, I had my responsibility of what I had to do at home
And
before
your
my
homework.
homework.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in '57.
Oh, 57.
I graduated in 58.
Okay.
See, we were high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
Been married 53 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well,
And
thank you.
enjoy for that.
Thank
Did you, I heard you mention you went to college. Did you go to college too?
No.
I took a
He took
2 or 3 years of industrial training out of a Lincoln Institute out of Cleveland, Ohio. The Lord blessed that I maintained a B average. There were openings then in the factory that I worked, but because of my color, at that time, blacks was not working in offices.
No, I started nursing school, but it was so many of us in school at the time I graduated. My father didn't have enough money for me to finish, so therefore, I had to drop out and get a job. I worked instead of
Well-
going to college.
Where did you work? What was your first job?
My first job
Mm-hmm.
at Mansfield General Hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
My first
as
job-
a nurse's aide.
You remember the year? What year that was?
Probably, what, it was about, I went to start nursing school in fall, so probably it was 59.
59.
I worked at Rogers Jewelry Store, downtown Mansfield.
Then I left there and went to J.C. Penney's.
I worked, I sung in the glee club with Mr. Durr, and I couldn't sing a lick. So what he did, he told me, he said, since singing is your first period, why don't you work an extra hour on your job? And I'll give you a B. And that's how I got my grades in glee club. I couldn't sing a lick, but Mr. Durr was so coordinated with the youth that the love and energy that he gave to the music that the children just adored him. I was allowed to go to work at Rogers Jewelry and work from 7 in the morning till 9 in the morning, and then I would leave and come to school. Then after football practice at Simpson, see, I was still going to junior high school. I would leave football practice and go and clean up at Rogers Jewelry, and then I would walk from up where the peanut shop is on North Main. I would walk from there all the way out here.
Do you remember the peanut shop on North Main? Oh, you guys are too young for that.
No.
Yeah.
See, when we came to Mansfield,
Yeah.
North Main was brick, so was
Was brick.
Mulberry.
All the way up, yeah.
On a Saturday, on a Friday and a Saturday and a Monday, you couldn't get uptown because of the traffic. Main Street was two-way. You could
Yeah,
go
it's
up
two-way.
and you could come down. We didn't know what one-way street was until the late, early 60s. There were businesses from West Fifth Street all the way up Main Street. Dunkin' Donut Shop, Coney Islands, that was the ideal spots. If we were going to senior high, we would leave home at 7 o'clock, and two of us would pick up what we needed. Have you ever heard of a baker's dozen?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the way Coney Island, his son went to school with us. So we had a jump on that, and then at Dunkin' Donut, we knew the manager real well, so we always got, if we ordered a quantity, then we got extra specials. While if all of our buddies chipped in and buy, then those extra specials that we got, the two that picked the merchandise up, that's what we ate on until we got to senior high school. Yeah.
So what was?
I was gonna, after the jewelry store, where else did you work?
I worked at Richmond Brothers, that's a clothing store where the library is now.
Yeah.
That's where Richmond Brothers was. Right beside Richmond Brothers, on the corner of Walnut and West Third, there was the Evergreen Restaurant. And up from an Evergreen restaurant on the corner where Chase Bank is now, that was a jewelry store. And beside the jewelry store, it was a Madison Theater. Across from the Madison Theater was the Mansfield Leland Hotel. On the corner of Park Avenue West and Walnut, there was J.C. Penney's. And across the street was Fox Jewelry Store and a restaurant. And on West 3rd Street and Walnut was Montgomery Ward's. And across from Montgomery Ward's, where the office building is now, was O'Neill's.
Right.
And on the corner of Main and West 3rd was Scattergood. They got burnt down. And next door to where the parking lot is, by the Greek restaurant, that was Maxwell's clothing store.
Yeah.
And across from Maxwell was where the bank is now. Then there was a mortgage loan company beside the bank, and then there was Kobackers. And then beside Kobackers, there was H.L. Reed. And then
What about the Isaac Dairy?
that was on West 4th Street. And we had Scattergood, we had the 5 and 10, Montgomery Ward's, Sears and Roebuck was where the Red Cross is now.
Yeah.
Where the court house is now, there were a Flourish, a children's shoe store, and another department, and behind them was a restaurant and Isley's Dairy on Walnut.
What was Did you say Scattergoods?
Scattergood Clothing Store.
It was a clothing store.
It was a clothing store.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was one I hadn't heard of.
Yeah.
So what was the neighborhood like back then?
The neighborhood was quiet and peaceful. The order of the neighborhood was, school days, you were in the house when the sun go down, everything was off the street. On the weekends, we were allowed to be out till 10 o'clock. We had certain neighbors' homes that we visit, certain children we played with. If the children didn't go to church, my father labeled them as bad environments. I don't want you around them. Well, they were my buddies. We played ball together, and we went to school together, and I was disobedient. I couldn't shun my buddies. Back then, we had cherry trees, apple trees, pears, peach trees. We raided the neighborhood. On Sunday morning, the Sunday school teacher would teach, that was stealing. So, you know, your conscience is bothering you that you're trying to abide by what you're being taught and by the rules and regulations of spiritually of God. And so I learned through my Sunday school teacher that if your parents have a pear tree in the yard and you want some pears, you go knock on the door and ask permission. That was fine. Your parents would tell us, yes, you can have the pears on the ground. I don't want you climbing the trees and breaking my branches. Well, we look at the pears on the ground and look at the pears on the tree, and the pears on the tree look better than it was on the ground. So he said we can't climb the tree, so we'll look for a stick that would reach up and we could knock the pears off. And occasionally, we still climbed the trees and broke the branches, and we suffered the consequences. But the neighborhood, it was orientated where everybody knew each other. Joe Shavinsky and a lot of us grew up together, and we played together, and we went to school together, and we walked together.
Somebody might have a party, a birthday party or something like that.
We was all
congregation
invited.
together. Everybody's invited to somebody's birthday. That's mostly activities and stuff. Maybe once in a while, somebody throw a dance or something like that at the friendly house. you know, everybody goes to Friendly House.
And my father, he was detrimental on, that was of the world. I couldn't dance. I never learned how to dance. The church was next to the Friendly House, and they had dancing on Wednesday nights. And I had prayer meeting on Wednesday nights. So my buddy and I'd be sitting in church and we'll raise the window. While they singing songs spiritually, we'll be listening to the teenagers and why do fools falling off and all this stuff.
Now, what street did you grow up on? Like, what when we talk about the neighborhood, we're talking about.
I'm still living in the same house
Okay.
that I was raised in on Raymond Avenue,
Okay.
86 Raymond Avenue. That's where I was raised. And I learned that you make the neighborhood. The neighborhood don't make you.
And I lived on Daisy Street,
And she lived right down the street from me.
and I was down the street from there.
Now, did you guys refer to it? Was that always called the North End by?
Yes.
I mean, the people that live there. I mean, because I know, like, we call the North End. We have a very broad kind of definition of what north of Park Avenue.
Was it called North End?
It was still
Yeah, it was
the
still north.
north of Mansfield.
Okay.
North of Mansfield.
Because I've noticed, like, some folks talk about. Well, clearly there were other areas there that we've learned about the camps. We've learned about the company line,
Yeah, the
the
company line
Watchworks.
was out where, the Rupp building is now. That was, the company line out in that area.
And growing up, you guys were aware of those neighborhoods and the I mean, did interact with.
We were in them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, we knew.
As a youth, I used to, one of the deacons of our church, I had to cut his grass.
Yeah, he lived in the company
He
line
lived on the
area.
company line.
Yeah,
And I had to be friends with the children in that area to go through there. If I wasn't their friends, then I had to battle in and battle out. At the north end, you had the company line across the railroad tracks. Then I had in the steel mill area.
yeah.
Then
that
we
was the other
had
area.
the Oakenwall area. Then we had First and Second Street. As a youth, when I was coming up, all those was boundary lines. But as far as going west, there was no inhabitation of blacks living in those areas at the time. And if I went out on Lewis Avenue or out on the company line or out on Oakenwall, I had to know somebody in that area. Like the Rays lived on Oakenwall,
Yeah.
the Tadlers and the Twymans and the Wyndhams lived on the company line, and the Tollivers lived on the north, out on Bowman. So I knew those families. So whenever I went in, it was okay for me to come in because somebody in there knew me. So I was at ease, and then I sold papers, and I had to walk all over this area to sell papers. At the time, my father made me become a paper deliverer. It wasn't what I wanted to do, but it was what he commanded me to do, and I had to be obedient. Even though I disliked what he ordered me to do, I was respectful enough to do it because I knew what the consequences would be. As far as talking back to my father, that was obsolete. Whatever he said, that was it. If I got angry, I went out and took it out on a tree or something. I just go out in the backyard and kick that tree until I got tired. But I would never go against or talk back to him.
What was the neighborhood pretty well racially mixed, or what would you say it was?
Mixed. Our
It was-
neighborhood was
it was
mixed.
mixed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our
It
neighborhood
was,
mixed. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
I was just gonna say I heard you mention a couple stores. I just want to know what other restaurants like were in the neighborhood. Any restaurants that were?
Downtown was Kramer's, where you see that train
Down here.
on the side of, that was an excellent place to go and dine. Boston Restaurant was spaghetti. That was the Italian. You could sit right in the windows and look out on the street of downtown Mansfield. Then they had the Blue Note, which was obsolete and off limits to me because nightclubs was not allowed in our home. They had Sam Pool Room where a lot of the
Yeah.
fellas went to shoot pool.
Red Hill Main Street.
I never learned how to shoot pool because that was obsolete. That was downtown in a corrupt area my father called, so I couldn't go in there. And I never learned how to shoot pool, so when I got grown, I went in there one day and I was gonna shoot pool. And I think they were playing a nickel and a dime a game, and the guy racked the balls up, and he shot all the balls off the table, and he took my nickel, and I'm standing there, and I haven't had my turn. He said, well, there's no turn, I cleaned the table. So,
That was it.
the next
Game was over.
game, I throwed another nickel on the table, and the other guy cleaned the table. And I walked out, I put my stick up, I said, man, you guys are not cleaning me out, I only got 15 cents left. Well, at the time, it only cost a dime to get into the movies. And a quarter was to get into the Madison Theater, and 50 cents to get into the Ohio Theater.
Yeah.
Very few blacks in the time that we went to the Ohio Theater. If we did, there were certain areas that the blacks set. But by playing football for Mansfield Senior High School, when we went, the balcony was reserved for the football players. Then on a Sunday, Coach Bill Peterson would take us to the church out on Marion Avenue and Klein Avenue on the corner there. And he made sure that we athletes attended church. And I had the highest respect for him. And Coach Pearson, he was the principal at senior high at the time. Not at that time, he was a line coach. And Mr. Glass was the principal. And Mr. Sherman was the assistant principal. And we had fun at the noontime at Mansfield Senior High School. At lunchtime, we would just lay out on the grass and nowhere to go, no particular place to go. We just hung out. And we lied, we told jokes, we kidded, but we never was brutal like the kids are today. We never wore our pants down the way the kids are wearing them. That was obsolete. We always dressed nice, no fanciness, no uniforms, anything, but we didn't have the best.
Smoke or do drugs or nothing like that.
If some of them
That was a
smoked,
no-no.
they did it away from the school. But as far as talking, we had monitors in our school where it was just like police. And if you were out of line, then a lot of the athletes took care of the situation. And today, it's altogether different.
How is it different today?
How is it different now?
More violent,
You got more violent,
disrespect.
you got, disrespect for anybody. They, kids now are carrying guns, knives,
Didn't know what a gun was when I was.
they're unruly, they get in gangs and don't realize they're in gangs until it's too late. They don't know how to get out of them. Back when we came up, we ran together, but it was no game.
Somebody picked on you, they had
Yeah,
just to answer to.
you had 2 or 3 others, hey,
Big brother,
don't
we
do
were
that.
big brothers then.
or now, you in gangs, they ready to kill you at the drop of a hat. Drugs. Back then, we didn't have what you call drugs. Kids didn't drink or do drugs or shoot them up. We joyride around the park, stuff like that. We get in cars and we, have fun like that, drive around the parks or sit in the park and, just talk. But now kids don't talk. They ready to fight you for anything. Hey, man, I want them shoes you got, give them here, or I kill you. You either turn them shoes loose, or you dead. We didn't do such crazy stuff like that. The kids had nice clothes, don't get me wrong. Back when we came up, we had nice clothes, our clothes was neat and clean. You didn't leave at the house dirty. If you were dirty, you go back and change.
We had that Superfly, Continental, our pants,
Yeah,
our legs
and you
was
didn't,
that
you
long.
didn't wear them down. Well, the feds did start in 56 or 7. They start wearing the pants down loose, and that was soon, because the parents didn't like it, the other kids didn't like it. And then when he started coaching me, he used to wear them like that. I said, no, that's a no-no. And if my father see that, I know it ain't gonna be no court
I
coming to see.
I didn't
It's
wear
come
them
to
that
see
low.
me at all.
I didn't wear, we,
They didn't wear them as low.
We-
They wore them, I think, hip
just
side.
like your jeans, we
Yeah.
would bleach our jeans,
Yeah,
and we would buy white buck shoes
yeah,
and take the heel off, and then take mud
and
and
scuff them up.
scuff them up
Now,
and dirty them
that
up.
was their fad.
And we would
But
wear
now,
our
it's altogether different. Everything is name brand this and name brand that.
cuffs. Our
And the
cuffs
kids
would
take
be
'em.
hanging like yours, but I would wear Sears and Roebuck, regular foreign jeans, a painter jeans, anything that looked different and odd, that was the style.
Yeah.
But I think really what happened and what has happened is, you know, the scriptures say each generation will become wiser.
Weaker and wiser.
Weaker and wiser, and this is what is happening, is the word of God have been taken out of the schools and even in the homes.
And job opportunity for
And-
young people now is altogether different than when we was
Right.
coming along.
And-
You found a job, if it ain't working 2 or 3 hours in 5 and 10 cent store, or in the grocery store, or even the drugstore. You got a job working a couple hours, a week, or you go babysit somebody's kid, or somebody like that. But now, young kids don't want to do that. They want mega bucks to go babysit or get a job. They want to start off at $10 and $12 an hour, and that's not profitable.
Right down on the corner of Main
Yeah,
and 6th Street was a drugstore.
yeah,
Across the street was a Dairy Queen.
yeah.
Across where the vacant lot is on Main Street and 6th was the gay 90s. Then
But
it
you weren't
was,
allowed to go in there.
It was a shoe shop,
What was that? You said
the gay
the
90s.
gay 90s?
Yeah.
That was
Those was nightclubs.
nightclubs.
And
Re-
then
and
Chris-
it was restaurants,
You know, the Chris Cafe that's out on West Fourth?
Yeah.
It used to be right over there.
yeah.
And then up on 5th Street was the Red Ball Shoe Store. And beside it was Hess's Music, where on a Saturdays and even sometime on a Fridays, after I got up in high school, when my father went to work, I was able to slip out the house. And we would go to the record shop and just listen to the old plastic records. Back in those days where you had this little needle about that long, you screw into the record, and then you had to put, the automatic was your hand changed in the record. And that's a lot of time what we listened to.
Where was, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but where was the spaghetti house that you mentioned in Boston? Is
The
that-
Boston Spaghetti House was where, right down from Dansby's barber shop.
Okay,
You know-
which would be here on Main?
Yeah,
On
Main Street, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Main Street.
Then across the street from the Spaghetti House was an Greek grocery store where you would get your all types of cheese and bologna from. And that was across the alley from Kramer's Hotel.
Okay, and before we started, you were telling me about what was here. Could you tell us that on camera? What was in this site where we're at now?
In this site where we are now was a concrete block and cremic tile where you came in and bought your concrete blocks and your tiles for building the foundations of your homes or whatever building you were building. On this side alone, from North Main up to Bismarck, these buildings were still here and was occupied. Beside the Bismarck was City News, and beside City News was the Redhead service station. And then City News left that and went up to where it is presently now. And the owner of City News, he and his partner, they always allowed me to come in and read all articles, magazines, because my coach, Joe Romano, was my head coach at Simpson after Coach Bob Kennedy stepped down. Coach Joe Romano came and took over my 9th grade year. And by him being my coach and his friends always gathered at the City News, I was allowed to come in and just sit and read all the comic books I want. And that's how I learned all the update on the comic strips. Superman, Spider-Man was unthought of then. But Superman and the superheroes and Lash LaRue and Rocky Lane and Tom Mix and all, I was up to date on all